Triple H's return in 2007 marked the start of a whole completely new run for the game. Having been positioned as the next challenger for John Cena in the lead up to WrestleMania, the game was unable to make it to the show of shows due to his quad tearing. It was going to be another one between Cena and Triple H. I assume Triple H would have won the title here because I can't see him going 0 for 2, especially in the main event of WrestleMania. The injury wasn't a huge blow for WWE at the time, but it began to show during the summer. The game's return marked an important moment of normalcy after such a dark summer. He was back with a tan and a beard, which was slightly different to his usual look. In ring, the game was basic but started to show more as the weeks went by. His story was all set to lead to a big match with Randy Orton at WrestleMania. I think he was even supposed to win the Royal Rumble, but then you know what happened. John Cena's return changed plans. These three were tied together throughout the build and of course the match at WrestleMania. It was good, but even I as a kid was stunned that Randy Orton retained the title. I thought Cena was winning since he was unbeaten at WrestleMania, but this man took the pin. Very surprising result. Triple H was still on the heels of Randy Orton and the WWE Championship despite this. He was determined to win it back. Another opportunity came at Backlash. Fatal 4-way elimination match. Now this one was missing something, I'd say. It was almost good but suffers from the length, which is a common story in Orton and Triple H's careers. But it ended very well for the game as he reclaimed the WWE Championship for the first time in 6 months, and it was his first actual reign in 6 years. Ironically, he lost the belt at Backlash years earlier and at the same event, won it back. Alright, with that said, let's get into it. Okay. On the April 28, 2008 episode of Raw, Triple H came out to talk about his title victory. I will say, it looks very weird to see him with this title, especially if you see how he constantly failed to win the belt, not to mention it was considered to be the John Cena title. He's more associated with the World Championship. The game said that the age of Orton is over, and Triple H spoke about his doubts of being the best when he was out with an injury. And funny enough, he returned to the same building as the champion. Randy Orton didn't let him finish his promo, and again, when you see this version of Orton, it's always with the belt attached to him. The Viper didn't want to let Triple H give a victory speech over a win that was very unfair as the odds were stacked against him. Orton said it was a matter of being a victim of his own success. You heard Randy Orton on April 28, 2008. We should make a meme out of it. The former champion said nobody, including Triple H, was on his level and that he's winning back his title at Judgment Day. The bitterness was showing greatly here with Orton seething over this turn of events and the fans treating him like a joke. So Triple H told him to leave. A lot of tension between these two to the point where Randy Orton made a bold decision. The game knocked him down with the mic and this sent Orton over the edge to the point where he wanted the belt tonight. He invoked the rematch clause for that night and said that the age of Orton had only begun. Randy Orton used his last title reign as an example, a run that ended after 2 hours when Orton beat him in a last man standing match. We don't got a long build, but let's summarize it. Randy Orton's bitterness and contempt for the lack of a title on his shoulder has caused him to make a huge impulse decision out of emotion. A WWE Championship match only one night removed from his title loss to the very same man, Triple H. So let's talk about it. These two had a lot of time on their hands to the point where this was one of the longer Raw matches from that era. Now imagine a Triple H and Orton match. That's what you get here. Both men had a lot to prove, especially Orton, who felt he was robbed out of his belt because of the Fatal 4-Way rules. The crowd was very hot early on for this match because they wrestled with a lot of intensity. Instead of leading into that, they followed the textbook style, which didn't help their case much because Triple H doesn't seem like one of those overcome the odds faces. You know, it doesn't really work well when he's the underdog. He targeted Orton's shoulder, and without context, you'd think Orton was the face of this match. Orton's opening did come along, and that led to the methodical style of Orton. After the commercial break, Randy Orton was officially in control. I think this match is hurt by the way it's structured. They really love this combo, but it rarely works, especially as it was becoming less of a thing as time went on. You know, the match style. And this one was centered around the headlock. Orton and Triple H were obsessed with that hold throughout this one. Randy Orton's shoulder was the one thing that allowed for the game to come back into it. They ramped it up with the impactful moves and the near falls, but just when the match was getting better, William Regal turned off the feed and the lights in the arena. This guy went from a regular villain to a super villain in an instant. He suffocated the guy with, "Take it off the bloody ass." This was the feed, and all you could hear is sounds and the commentary. William Regal is basically the pharaoh in the biblical stories, a man greedy for all the power and success while demanding others' respect. Tyrant Regal was supposed to be a huge storyline, but then he failed the wellness policy. He might have even been positioned as the challenger to Triple H and the WWE Championship because he was the main character of Raw after Backlash, and a lot seemed to be riding on the story. With that said, that match needed a little more to it. I always think that Triple H and Randy Orton want a certain epic encounter that doesn't exist when it comes to them. It's funny because both of them could have a much better match with anyone else, but when it comes to them, a story that's deeper than just about any in WWE. They can't get over some issues in their matches. Triple H congratulated Regal on his position as Raw GM and said that if he wants to stay in that position, maybe he shouldn't make mistakes like turning off the lights in his main event. Triple H saw it as a sign of disrespect, and we all know how he takes things like that. Triple H even said that if he wants to keep his job, he shouldn't go to war with him. Regal responded by booking him in a handicap match with Mr. Kennedy against the ECW roster. Yeah, like Triple H is gonna struggle against some mid-carders. 2008 Triple H. If Orton and Cena could pair up and turn into 2013 LeBron and Wade, what will Triple H do against an inferior brand? Randy Orton, meanwhile, wasn't happy about the match being cut off because he had the match won, but he didn't really care too much about it. Now, personal opinion on this kind of match, I don't care about the fact that it could be seen as burying talent. I don't care because we don't see 99 overall performances often. You think the fans wouldn't go crazy if Austin did one of these in 1999? This kind of match doesn't happen often. But even though Orton and Cena had the method, it was patched here. Triple H dropped all of them with chair shots after Kennedy took the loss. You thought Triple H was gonna take the loss? Yeah, alright. The lights went out and Randy Orton ran in and RKO'd him from out of nowhere. He had a lot of confidence ahead of Judgment Day and it showed here. Orton debuted his new theme song Voices that same night, and it can't be understated just how much this song completes his character. Triple H came out later that night and stood tall on top of the steel cage, and it was a short build for this match. It wasn't even much. Judgment Day was sold on the steel cage match, but they didn't put effort in trying to get people to buy it. Probably because One Night Stand was 2 weeks later. Now, this match wasn't that good and suffers from the fact that it was Triple H and Randy Orton facing off. Very few matches of theirs end up being great. Here, it was just there and served as a catalyst for their last match. The game retained the title, but their feud was far from over. I don't have much to say about it because it felt like a TV match. It's kind of hard to talk about it in short, but it just wasn't much. Triple H wasn't worried much about his next challenger and said that it's business as usual because he's the best and has been the best. He faced Orton in tag team action with the winner getting the choice of their match at One Night Stand. Triple H didn't take the pin here as it was JBL who pinned Cena to give Orton the stipulation choice. The Viper did exact damage on the game to end Raw on top, but there was one thing missing: the match stipulation. He revealed it to be Last Man Standing. The Last Man Standing match had done very well to Randy Orton in the past. His second WWE Championship reign came from that match, and it was against Triple H. Both men had one final confrontation ahead of the pay-per-view, and it was intense. Plenty of envy and contempt radiating from both men. Randy Orton didn't like the fact that there was doubts about his chances against Triple H. Every win he gets has some sort of asterisk. Triple H told him that he's an ass and that he isn't taking him as a joke. He knows how good he is more than Orton knows he is. He's like, oh, I know how good you are, more than you even realize. And it shows a lot as he always wins in some sort of cheap way as opposed to working hard for the victory. He basically said that Orton thinks he's better than he actually believes, so everyone will perceive him as that. So he's basically like, Orton is a bit insecure and wants the people to know he's as good as he says he is. Triple H told him to be the best, he has to rise to the occasion, and Orton was seething. The fact that people actually think Triple H thrives on competition, that's what infuriated him. And he mentioned how the game always tries to take out his competition by being their friend or eliminating them. Orton had a lot of heat on this night, but he made sense. This was a logical heel. Dating back to the rise of Evolution, Randy Orton had seen the best and the worst of Triple H. Painting this image of him as his character comes from a real place. Orton said that Shawn Michaels is too stupid to see that Triple H sees him as a threat. Same thing with him. When he won the title in 2004, Triple H tried to take him out. The champion said that him and Flair made Orton see his potential and tried to make it seem like Orton was swimming with sharks. Even admitted that when it comes to the title, it's every man for himself. Triple H didn't show any remorse over his actions and said he'll never walk away from the title or this game. It's a situation where you don't hate the player, you hate the game. Because it's the law of the jungle. Randy Orton said that he'll walk away on Sunday after he wins. Triple H tried to press him here, saying that the last word will be clear on Sunday and it won't be spoken. Either the age of Orton lives on or the last 7 months mean nothing. Triple H gave him a sign into Sunday and said that it will be so bad that it will feel like the age of Orton never existed. Great promo and great character work here. I don't remember this promo and I was watching every show as a kid, but this was very notable. Orton was doing his very best to portray Triple H as the villain of the story, and he actually had validity in his story. There was so much logic behind it, and it's always hard to justify Triple H's past actions, but instead of making himself seem like some sort of saint, Triple H straight up admitted to being a byproduct of the system. Every man for himself, and that was the slogan he lived by his entire career. To see other people's fault for not seeing it the same way. Otherwise, he'd never be the success he was. I really liked this promo because I didn't expect anything like it, and it came as a very huge surprise. With that said, desperation and a yearning to cling to the success of the age of Orton has brought him to his decision of the Last Man Standing match. The match is a symbol of Orton's success and the beginning to what was a dominant run. Triple H threatens the foundations that the age of Orton built into the Viper. The Last Man Standing match is Orton's last resort, his last chance to reignite the fire of the age of Orton. The pressure was on him, whereas with Triple H, it's a normal day. Plenty of eras were started and ended by him. So let's talk about it. This match felt like it was heating up with Orton getting comfortable in his role as the villain, but then he got an RKO countered and landed on the concrete floor, and he straight up said his collarbone was broken. The match got awkward and then quickly wrapped it up. After that great promo, you'd expect such a strong match from these two, but Orton broke his collarbone and it ended up being underwhelming because of that. Triple H looked very disappointed in the way this whole thing turned out, and it led to Orton being sidelined for about 5 months. The game was looking forward and said it's like the age of Orton never existed. John Cena didn't allow for him to think much about his next challenger, as it was going to be him. Cena told him he didn't need to look hard into the future, because it's now. He hyped up their potential rematch as the biggest thing out there, bigger than the Red Sox and the Yankees, Lakers and Celtics. It was gonna be the biggest thing ever, basically. And Triple H was up for that challenge. Jeff Hardy, who was banged up, didn't want his name to be forgotten, and Hardy wanted the title shot, but Triple H told them to work things out together. He's the champion. They had a good match later that night with Hardy being a weak opposition, but one that posed as a huge threat for John Cena. Hardy was broken and battered, but had a lot of resiliency, and the commentary would constantly mention how banged up he was from one night stand. The game didn't waste time in coming out to confront his challenger and Night of Champions. I remember WWE really hyped up this match like crazy. This had a certain flair about it, the fact that it was simply about being the best and the title. I like these basic stories sometimes. They work really well when it's established main eventers like these two. You know, it's like they don't need much of a story other than the fact that it's about the championship and the previous match at WrestleMania 22. John Cena had a win over Triple H's head that he was so interested in getting over. Cena had a lot of momentum heading into the event, but the game made sure to keep him checked and aware of who he was dealing with. So Cena cost him the match, and to make matters worse, Jeff Hardy dove over the ropes and right onto them. Both men seemed a little too confident for this match, and WWE tried selling it as the biggest match of the year. Triple H was furious over the previous week, and Cena had to remind him of his actions earlier in the show. Once again, the game called Cena's wrestling into question, so he responded with WrestleMania 22. Triple H didn't sell it, saying it was 2 years ago, but Cena said nothing changed. 2 years later, it's still the biggest match in the industry. This got so heated that Cena got very intense to the point where he told the game that even though he has the title, until he beats him, he's nothing. Triple H was too busy making jokes about Cena's fans and said one of those kids could give him the foam belt to hold once he loses. Cena was ready for a fight. He was ready to beat him up. Triple H, meanwhile, confronted Chris Jericho, who was provoking Ric Flair. He was looking for any reason to fight him since his return, and with that, he's found a reason. This Raw was used as a way to establish this new version of Chris Jericho. He overpowered both Cena and Triple H, who both had plenty of problems to show here. A huge wrench was thrown into Triple H's way, though, heading into Night of Champions. The game was surprisingly drafted to SmackDown. Very huge change that was going to alter the course of Friday nights. It gave SmackDown more legitimacy, and in addition, made the big title match a little more unpredictable. Because Batista on the other side challenged Edge, and that in itself was a match that could go either way. Batista was drafted to Raw, which is important to mention because it gave both title matches high stakes and a lot of intrigue. Even though it was different, Triple H said that there was a lot that was the same. He called SmackDown home, but moved on to serious business. Edge interrupted and related to Triple H over the fact that they're champions. After the game made fun of him, Edge said Cena made him tap out and that he should learn that this is his house. Batista came out and dropped him with a spear before posing with the title he didn't win. Now, I have plenty of positive thoughts as it relates to this match. Triple H walked into this a confident champion, fully focused on rectifying a loss from 2 years earlier. A loss that John Cena desperately wanted to make a black mark in the game's career. But that was then. This is now. Triple H was WWE champion for the first time in 6 years, and a champion that welcomed back the toughest challenge in his career, because to him, it was always a loss that bothered him. It wasn't because he thought he wasn't good enough, but that Cena isn't as good as he says he is. All he has is that win over his head, and Night of Champions could change that. Triple H tried to get into Cena's head early on. This didn't work much because John Cena's aggression was very tough to match, not to mention, as a brawler, Cena had the clear advantage. A great moment here was Cena's shoulder tackles actually being figured out for once. The game made sure to turn this into a wrestling match since Cena apparently can't wrestle. The atmosphere was great in Dallas for this one, I just want to mention that. John Cena was Superman, but Triple H was doing his very best to match him. The formula of this match was understood, and these guys made sure to make the most out of it to give a good match. The game's knee became a factor at this point, and he was struggling but still dropped Cena with a pedigree for a near fall. The challenger responded with the FU, but it wasn't enough. Two resilient warriors trading strikes for the most valuable prize in the industry, the WWE Championship. Cena had the edge, and it seemed like a matter of time before the game fell victim to the STFU. WrestleMania 22 comes to mind. Cena was determined and convinced that the move was his key to success, but Triple H managed to counter with a crossface. Cena had enough strength to lift him up and attempt the FU, but it wasn't to be, and Triple H dropped him with a pedigree. 1, 2, 3. Great match. These two made good on the build by showing the passion and resiliency necessary to fight for the title. That's what makes it good. It had high hopes, but they followed up on it effortlessly. You know a match you imagine from the build? This was exactly that. It's always a good thing to see a match's potential fulfilled. This was definitely better than the WrestleMania 22 match. It just was. But one of the reasons I'd say it was better is due to Cena being more experienced in the fact that Triple H felt more mobile and faster. That was the key to this match. The game was in way better condition during this time period, and it benefited his matches a lot. But this is one of those matches where I thought it was so good that it actually should have been the WrestleMania 24 match. Obviously it leaves Randy Orton out, but that's kind of how good this match was. Like, it makes me delusionally believe it should have been on WrestleMania 24. So now he was off to SmackDown. The game was a guest on MVP's VIP lounge. Triple H made fun of MVP's Power Ranger outfit he wears, and MVP said it must bother Triple H that he makes more money than him. It wasn't a problem to Triple H to him because it's better to be a success than be the biggest waste of money in SmackDown history. Triple H is treating MVP like he's Jamarcus Russell or something. For a moment, these two were bantering with each other, but then Vicky Guerrero interrupted. After Triple H said that Vicky is a big step up from Edge's previous girlfriend, get the saying, big step up? She tried hyping up the return of the Rated R superstar. Triple H was set to face Edge at the Great American Bash for the title, but in the meantime, he had his first match back on SmackDown against Chavo Guerrero. This was a nothing match that saw the game destroy Chavo and focus on his next challenger, Edge. Triple H took the term wedding crasher literally and opted to ruin what was supposed to be a monumental night for Edge and Vicky. He exposed Edge, and this whole segment was hilarious. This guy came out wielding a gift which was a secret weapon for himself and refused to allow the celebration to continue until they saw the footage. I know you're Edge, but he has no game. He's basically the Great Khali of game. Other than the fact that Edge has no pull if a woman's eyes are closed. The footage showed him kissing Alicia Fox, and like a professional hater, Triple H looked on with a lot of fulfillment, because not only did he crash the wedding, but he got into the mind of Edge. He ruined the wedding, everything was horrible for Edge and Vicky, and that was the build. With that said, Edge worked as the aggressor early on. He was furious over these turn of events and lashed out on the champion. Edge was dominant and had a strong hold on the match. I will say the psychology of this match is very logical and in line with the story. It doesn't mean the match is great, but it's logical. Edge being distracted and angry over the whole wedding thing, and the fact that they weren't really wrestling, it was more of a fight. Once they turned it up, the match got even better. But then the Vicky drama came into play. Edge accidentally speared her, leading to Triple H hitting the pedigree. Match. It was a very weird match to watch because for as much intensity Edge showed when he was facing Triple H, it didn't make for an exciting match. What holds this back is also the fact that Edge had his own story around this match. And it's weird because Edge and Triple H is a duo that really hadn't interacted much, especially when it comes to singles matches, so this being their first match is kind of unfortunate. The game focused on SummerSlam. His next opponent was surprisingly the Great Khali. This was pretty random. It felt like a throwaway match because Khali wasn't as dominant as he was in the past. And looking at the roster, honestly, in all honesty, I would have preferred MVP. I think MVP should have been the challenger here. He could have gotten a better match out of him, right? Plus, he was also some guy that was perceived as the future of WWE. Maybe they could have given him the challenge there, but it is what it is. Triple H and Great Khali's feud was very simple. They had a broken glass arm wrestling contest. This was bizarre, and the commentary was questioning them doing one of these ahead of their match at SummerSlam. Now, obviously, this went viral on YouTube. It's an arm wrestling contest, and Great Khali, if we go by YouTube, is a massive draw. These what chants during this promo were too damn loud. Ranjin Singh said that Triple H should get out while he can, and that he's never faced anyone like him before. Triple H responded and told him that while he never faced someone like the Great Khali, the same could be said for Khali himself. The champion didn't want to hide his strategy and said he was going after his knees. Now, we're not about to commentate a damn arm wrestling contest, but this was Triple H almost winning the whole thing when Khali realizes, I'm a heel, and ruins it. The big question to come out of this was how was Triple H gonna hit the pedigree? Because Khali could win with a vice grip. Good thing he didn't squeeze blood out of him because Kid Mio would have been terrified. Triple H didn't lose his confidence and if anything was more intent on making good on his promise. He tried to pedigree Khali but was unable to. Despite this, he managed to send him running. Now, this might as well have been written as a W for Triple H, but let's talk about it. Triple H struggled a lot with Khali, who dropped him with a tree chokeslam. He overpowered the champion and all he had was speed, but how is he going to separate himself from this giant? There was very few opportunities for him to do something about this dominance. The steel post was his best friend for a slight moment, but that didn't matter much because he found himself in the vice grip. The title is basically in Khali's hands at this point, but because of his persistence to win with the vice grip, he made a huge mistake though, and this led to the pedigree. One, 2, 3. This match is a bit better than I thought, seeing as Khali moves 12 steps a minute. This was as good of a match you were gonna get in Khali's hands at this point. One thing Triple H understood was that the longer the match was, the worse it would get. They had only 10 minutes but had a story behind it and something that didn't get boring. It's not a good match, but for Great Khali, this is like a 4-star match. I'm certain this is the best Triple H could pull out. It's like a glass full of water. You're not gonna get more if you keep pouring. It's gonna be a mess. Triple H's next challengers were 4 other men. It was a championship scramble match. The game didn't want all of those guys to celebrate the big win yet, and the reason why he's mentioning this is because the odds aren't in his favor. Shelton Benjamin got his biggest chance to show off during his new push as the gold standard. A main event match against the game. They had a solid match that was ruined by the Great Khali interfering. Shelton Benjamin straight up told him that the match isn't about him. There's 4 other men in there. MVP thought he was better than all of them, and after Triple H made fun of them, the Brian Kendrick ran in there and they all jumped him. Jeff Hardy made the save and Triple H's steel chair allowed for the faces to stand tall. The game was roughened up by the Great Khali in the main event. Even with the heel lumberjacks, Triple H was able to score the victory, but he was met with a twist of fate. Now this match was odd. We got to see the Brian Kendrick as champion for a moment, and I don't care. I'd live off this moment if I won the title here. Triple H came into the match and quickly realized how much of a tough one this was going to be. Jeff Hardy just wanted to stay down and won the WWE Championship 3 times during this match. Jeff Hardy was on fire during the last parts of the match, and the fans were starting to prepare for a new champion. Then, from out of nowhere, Triple H regained the title at the last moment. Good match, but it becomes way more important in the last few minutes. It's hard to care about it as much unless the last entrant comes out. Yet another heartbreaking loss for Jeff Hardy. Now to Triple H, that was one of the toughest matches in his entire career, but even then, he found a way to keep the title. Jeff Hardy interrupted. He praised him a little too much, but it was clearly for a reason. Triple H said he respected Hardy's passion for this business, and he also respected how Jeff tries to reach for the brass ring, but fails. He even called it the story of his life. Hardy said he didn't have DX or the family because if he did, he might have what Triple H has. The champion reminded him of his tag team with his brother, a team where he was considered the better man, yet Matt is the one who's champion. He said that Matt is the person who keeps him on the straight path. Without him, he'll never reach his goals because of his extracurricular activities. Despite all of this, Triple H really respected him and hoped he wins the #1 contenders match for a shot at the brass ring. Even then, no matter what happens tonight, he'll prove him right at No Mercy once he fails again. The game talked to all the other competitors. This guy was basically bored and interested in stirring up drama for the other 4 men. Jeff Hardy ended up winning the match and the title shot, but Vladimir Kozlov dropped him after the match to put his name in the title picture. Kozlov did the same to the game. Before the game went face to face with the charismatic Enigma, he had to face the other 2 champions in a big main event. Matt Hardy of course took the pin because he had the ECW championship, but Jeff Hardy was still 1 step ahead of Triple H and it showed here. Kozlov though ran in and they had him stand tall again. His push was one of the strangest things because he went from destroying jobbers to becoming the next contender like that. No Mercy ended up being one of the best singles matches in 2008. For Jeff Hardy, it's always the easiest match to mention if you just want to talk about his in-ring skills, which is something that a lot of people don't tend to talk about. They tend to talk about the moments where he dives up stuff, nearly dies, finds himself at freaking 1 HP. That's what they talk about. But when it comes to in-ring action, there's very few matches that Jeff Hardy had that were better than this one. So the story was basically, Triple H didn't treat Hardy like a huge threat because from time to time he was his own victim. Great promo for this match. They hyped it up with the Metallica song All Nightmare Long, and it highlighted Hardy's hunger and his eagerness to overcome the toughest challenge in his career, the game and the WWE Championship. Okay, Hardy took Triple H's respect for granted to start things off. Hardy overwhelmed Triple H with the wrestling early on, and once he used his unique offense, he seemed to look too strong. But then he went for a plancha, and the game went to work. He targeted the back with a strong focus on submission moves, but Hardy wasn't fully out of it though. He was still going all out as if he didn't ruin his own momentum early on with the plancha. This was a very exciting match. These two were going back and forth and the crowd treated it like a big deal. The fans were treating the Whisper in the Wind like it was a swanton and going crazy over the near fall. He missed the swanton and still came back up to counter the pedigree and hit the swanton. But from out of nowhere, Triple H stole it with the roll-up. This was tremendous and one of the biggest highlights from both men's careers. I love this match because both men had great chemistry together. It was paced well and done in a way to show you that Jeff Hardy will overcome any struggle in his way because of the WWE Championship, and his own mistake in the pin attempt was what cost him. And when it comes to the top, the tiniest margins will win you or lose you a match. I think this was Triple H's best match of 2008 and the best match from his later days in his career, at least as it relates to him as a full-time wrestler. The 2 men had a lot of mutual respect, but it was only going to get heated from here. The game had to defend his title later that week on SmackDown against the Big Show. Big Show just came off a win against The Undertaker via KO, and the challenger was very dominant here, keeping Triple H isolated and down. He was trying his best, but from out of nowhere, Big Show dropped him with a chokeslam. Just as he's going for the KO, a move that's won him many matches in the past, The Undertaker came out. Now, of course, Kozlov had to come out because they were hyping him up. They were pushing him super hard. Jeff Hardy, though, ran in, and for the first time, they sent him running. Hardy reminded Triple H that it's about the title, though, and dropped him with the twist of fate. So this is what they were setting up. They were setting up something for Cyber Sunday. There was 3 different choices for the game's Cyber Sunday opponent. Once again, there was no worries from him. When it comes down to it, they have to go through him. The ball is in their court. It's up to them to beat him. He has the advantage. Vladimir Kozlov later that night pinned Jeff Hardy right in front of the champion. Once again, they're trying to treat him like a threat. It's just not many people really cared a lot, and they would make a huge mistake later on when it comes to Survivor Series. I'll get to that later on. But right before Cyber Sunday, WWE decides to throw out one of the biggest matches in their back pocket. Triple H and The Undertaker. Jeff Hardy, meanwhile, was convinced that the fans were voting for him, and it's clearly obvious at this point. Kozlov didn't want to let them forget about him, saying he's going to be champion, and Triple H used Jeff Hardy as an example of what will happen by dropping him with a pedigree. So it was payback for 2 weeks earlier. Now, I need you guys to understand how hyped up this match was. WWE gave these guys a lot of time. They always separated them because of a potential match, and it was good. The Undertaker and Triple H had a nice precursor to their future matches. I did notice that they tried to save some of the best because this was a TV match, but even then this was great. Then Big Show ruined everything. Kozlov took what's left of the game and laid him out. WWE was trying their best to make you vote for Kozlov, but when it came down to it, the fans wanted Jeff Hardy. Oh, you want $5 or $200? What do you think the fan is gonna choose? Exactly. Similar to No Mercy, the game focused on the arm. He had a lot of attention on it just like he did to the back, and this match on paper was like a different version of No Mercy. It was mostly the same if you look at it from far. The later parts though changed that. The match wasn't as long as No Mercy, and they just had Hardy lose it clean. He did look strong, but because of his offense it cost him, because he hit a swanton but preferred to hit another one to ensure that the game stays down. Solid match, but No Mercy was better. They probably didn't think too much about this because Triple H had 3 different matches to consider. So it's not like they were going to work hard on making this one the best one because it wasn't even guaranteed to happen. Vladimir Kozlov complained about not getting a title shot, so Triple H told him that if he wants to fight, he's ready. The champion even called him the villain from Rocky IV and said that this is the plot of their match. You know, it's like, oh, the big bad villain comes in, he's from Russia, he dominates, but in the end he falls down to the American. Jeff Hardy still wanted one more match for the title, but Vicky doubted him and even said he isn't extreme anymore. This caused a change in the charismatic enigma. This wasn't enough, so he went after the top dog, The Undertaker. Hardy also challenged The Undertaker to an Extreme Rules match, all to get the title shot. Meanwhile, Triple H signed the contract for the match at Survivor Series. He said that this was normal business for him, whereas Kozlov never experienced something like this before. Jeff Hardy crushed the contract signing and made his mark, but this wasn't enough. He beat The Undertaker, and Vicky still told him he had to go against the game the following week. This was a very interesting way to get the match because Jeff Hardy never beat him ever since he moved to SmackDown. The game was tough opposition, but with the help of Kozlov, Jeff Hardy won the title shot and shook hands with the game. Of course, they had to make Vladimir Kozlov look strong afterwards, but that was common at this point. The Survivor Series match, though, turned out to be one of the worst things from 2008. It ain't no stock market crash, it was boring and established nothing. So first of all, Jeff Hardy was written out of it as they claimed he was attacked. This was dumb because it ruined the whole buildup, which basically guaranteed Hardy would bring a different side to the show. He was promoted on the show. People bought the show based on the fact that Jeff Hardy was going to compete. He started wearing face paint and had a mean streak, and because of all of this, the match was bad. These two didn't bring much excitement to the fans who were chanting boring. Kozlov wasn't a huge threat and his action wasn't entertaining. The Great Khali match was better than this, and that's saying something. It wasn't even slightly better, it was way better. And then to make matters worse, Jeff Hardy was in the arena. He was just replaced by the returning Edge. Hardy ran in there and caused chaos, accidentally blasting Triple H with the chair leading to the spear. Edge covered Triple H. 1, 2, 3. New champion. So there it is. Triple H's run has ended, and it ended with one of the worst matches from the entire year. Kozlov wrestled in a way where it's like he felt like just another opponent. Great Khali, who wasn't even as strongly booked as Vladimir Kozlov, was seen as a much tougher opposition. This guy, they had him here, he didn't feel untouchable like he always did in the build. And that ruins it a lot. Other than that, he's obviously green, and pushing him to the very top of WWE isn't going to end well. Now, obviously, Edge's return is for heat and to add to the Jeff Hardy story, which is understandable, but it's the fact that they advertise this show with Jeff Hardy as an opponent. Another thing to mention here is something that I actually forgot about. WWE made it seem like Jeff Hardy overdosed, and we're actually excited to have news coverage from the likes of CNN, Fox, and all those media outlets. And I don't know why you would want to do that, especially in light of the Chris Benoit tragedy. We already know Jeff Hardy's issues in the past, and they didn't even frame it as him being attacked until later on. So it's like, if you pay $40 or $45, I don't remember what it was at the time, if you pay that much, you expect Jeff Hardy. And a lot of people most likely paid for this pay-per-view because of the possibility of not only John Cena's return, but Jeff Hardy potentially winning the WWE Championship. In a vacuum, like, to put it simply, it's a good storyline development, but when you see that it happened on pay-per-view, it's very disappointing, not to mention that match in itself was bad. So when you put all that together, you get one of the worst Survivor Series matches, title matches ever. So that's Triple H's title reign. I usually hear a lot of talk about Triple H on the internet. You either like him or hate him or whatever. A lot of people tend to push their own agenda when it comes to stuff without actually watching said things. The reason why I say that is because I watched a lot of the Triple H matches for this run. I saw a lot from 08 Triple H. He was much faster in ring. He had a better ring presence. He was much better, but you don't really hear that a lot. When you hear about Triple H of 2008, people always mention the whole SVR 2009, don't show him in a defenseless manner thing. You don't actually hear about the title reign or his run on SmackDown. His run on SmackDown's interesting because it gives a lot of star power. You know, WWE would treat SmackDown as a huge show if they had Triple H on there, which they did here. Remember, when people hear "Oh wait, Triple H," they hear defenseless state in Vladimir Kozlov. That's what they think of. Remember enjoying his matches on SmackDown when I was younger. All right, with that said, the best promo from this run was definitely the one with Randy Orton. His matches with Randy Orton weren't all that, obviously, but that promo is the best promo for me from this title reign. The best match, I wouldn't say it's tough, but heading into it, I was convinced it was John Cena match at Night of Champions, but it's Triple H versus Jeff Hardy at No Mercy. That was the best match here. The game really put in the work here. He was much faster, much slimmer, and he had great opponents. You know, John Cena and Jeff Hardy really gave him two of the best matches of 2008. Two matches I really recommend you watch. The John Cena one, it has a big fight feel to it. It has a great atmosphere. It's almost like the final boss of WWE main events for that year. The Jeff Hardy match obviously deserves a mention because of the action and the chemistry between those two. They kind of perfected their style in that match, and it deserves a watch. So yeah, all right, what you guys think of Triple H's title run? Please comment down below. And that's it for this video. Make sure you hit the spine buster on the like button and perhaps the pedigree on the subscribe button. Peace. I'm out.